Lovers of language and viewers of the Cursed Conlang Circus to Alien Lang, a Cursed Conlang Circus 3 submission, better known as Tsunkad Shenpu. Long ago, before Agma Schwa, before the cell phone, before twilight, there stood the pyramids, tall, magnificent structures jutting out from the earth beneath. The question that has plagued minds of academics for years is, where are the pyramids from? Who built them? Why were these civilizations so advanced? How did they get their language? The answer? Aliens. There's no other explanation. Who could have built these magnificent beacons of architecture? Who else could have given these measly humans such advanced and profound language? After months of torturous research, I have found the ancient language given to our architectural predecessors. Engraved in this video, in literally our minds, are the secrets to all the questions we have ever spoken from our lips. This language is the actual predecessor of all languages on Earth. Even in Mesopotamia, pyramids stood trying to reach the aliens. In the Tower of Babel, just a rounder pyramid. As the Egyptian and Mayan pyramids are the most popular and well documented, the history of alien Lang is not very clear as we don't have the full histories of these civilizations, but what we do have will describe this language to the best of their abilities. What we do know is that the aliens would speak to us not with sounds or gestures, but with our minds. Every thought we have, every image we come up with, is from a frail attempt to understand what the humans are trying to tell us. Our minds are always in a constant state of having no thoughts and having the entire knowledge of the universe all at once. The aliens did, are, and will communicate with us. We just have to be able to listen. Phonetics. These are all of the sounds of the language. M, N, Ng, P, B, P, B, T, D, T, D, K, G, K, G, H, H, S, Z, Sh, J, Sh, J, H, R, H, W, R, L, Sh, S, C, Ch, J, Ch, J. And for vowels, E, E, U, U, E, O, O, A. In terms of phonotactics, there is no real syllable structure, so we'll get to that later. As I said before, every thought, remark, everything said at one time is all one word using these morpheme stops. Designation and validation are only added to the first word and not later. Observation is not mandatory, but can be added if wanted. Does it look like Ithquil? Yes. That's because Ithquil took their idea from the aliens. Or maybe the aliens just inserted the thought into the creator. Maybe that's how you, Agma Schwa, got the idea for this series. Syntax is VOS, with prepositions and adjectives after the noun. Instead of trying to break down each individual grammatical subject and describe how it works in this language, I'm going to work through one of the translations because that will probably be easier to follow. If we take the sentence, Edward was a vampire, I know that this is not the full translation of what I'm trying to do and it's just a part of the phrase, but it already has and will work out in the end. First, we change the word order to was a vampire Edward. Alien Lang doesn't have any articles, so we can remove those. We'll start with the verb. Using the chart shown before, we just follow those steps until we are finished. Designation and validation were already marked in the phrase before this, so we don't have to worry about this. So we just add the stem supplen. This comes from the root sup, meaning state or condition, and this meaning to be. Now we pick from the 8 different aspects. In this example, to be is in the stative aspect, and that gives us the morpheme zut. Next, we pick what version the verb is in. As this is not an action, we will add the morpheme trön. Next, we pick from the 6 tenses. We'll use past. We could say that because Edward has been alive for a long time, it's far past, but in relation to the aliens, he's but a speck in the timeline. So now we have the word supplen zut trön vlar. And this is why we don't really have syllable restraints. All different combinations of sounds can be made depending on what morphemes you use at the time. To put distinction between the different parts of the phrase, we use the morpheme slin. Now we get to the fun part, nouns. We start with the case. There are 13 cases that we can choose from. Vampire is a predicate nominative, but that can be easily recognized in this instance just using the nominative case, as this is describing what Edward is. Next, we add the stem zerak ak. Our next stop is affiliation. There are 4 different affiliations we can choose from, but I decided on coalescent because Edward and vampires are similar and have shared aspects, but not all Edwards are vampires and not all vampires are Edwards. After affiliation is essence. Is a vampire a real thing or just a representation of a thing? Well, Edward is a real vampire, so it will be normal. Plurality is marked from singular up to 8 of something, as well as more than 8 and collective. The reason there is 8 is because 8 is sacred to the aliens, as 8 marks the largest number of any electrons any atom can have in their shell, except for the first one, which has 2. There's only one vampire though, so we will add the morpheme coup. We will not be adding observation or interstellar alignment because these topics are not made clear in the translation sample. So we end with the word Pritzialak plon sinku. Following a similar process with Edward, with the nominative case, a coalescent affiliation, and a normal essence in the singular form, we end up with this phrase. All of the other phrases and parts of the translations are much, much more difficult and would take way too much time to go step by step in this video, so we won't do them here. But important things to note: when beginning a list, use the word lo pa, and before the next item in the list, you say what number of the list you're on. So if it's first, you say coup for 1. There is no distinction between any genders in the pronouns. There's only first, second, and third person, with all of the cases plus the genitive for possessive cases. I'm sorry if I missed anything, and the rest of this video will almost certainly have mistakes everywhere, but this is so much to keep track of all at once, it would take double the time given to 100% check my work. Now we move on to the absolute most fun part, the orthography. As mentioned before, these aliens do not speak this language. They transmit ideas through our minds. This is done by using quantum tunneling to send your phrase encoded in a light wave across time and space into the mind of the receiver. First, every sound has a number that it is associated with. These numbers are listed in order as they appear in the word, then they are encoded through many, many waves. Before I start, I must thank one of my friends who loves math a whole lot more than I do. He helped me flesh out these ideas and make sure the waves actually work the way that I was going to be using them. We have to map these waves together, and just as a quick explanation before I explain all the parts, every wave has 3 letters and are put together to create each individual wave. These waves are then added together to create the wave sent out to then be decoded by Fourier transform back into the individual waves to then be put back into the translation. If this sounds confusing to you, that's because it probably is, and it definitely was to me too. First, we have to talk about how waves are made. Waves have different parts that will change how the wave functions. There's amplitude, period, and frequency, which work hand in hand in horizontal offset. There's not horizontal offset in this photo, but that describes where the wave will start in accordance with a graph. While there is also vertical offset, it will not be included in this wave function because when a wave is transmitted, the vertical offset will not affect the wave the same way that it would on a graph. As I was saying earlier, every letter in the assigned number will have a corresponding wave transformation depending on the order of the number in the set of 3. So in this example, every single 3 letters, there's a division, and those 3 letters correspond to different wave transformations. These numbers are then added to the equation f of x is equal to a sine of bx plus c divided by 212. A will affect the amplitude of the wave, and it is the first number in the set of 3. B changes the frequency. And to everyone thinking that this isn't exactly how it works and that I really need to be using that to account for the period, I know this is just much easier. And to everyone who doesn't understand what I just said, you don't have to worry about it. Finally, C changes the horizontal offset. You must divide it by 212 so that the waves will never perfectly offset each other and cancel each other out. And that's the third number in the set. Once you have all of the waves together, then you must add them all together. While this could be done by hand, that would take way too long with multiple trig functions and hoping that I get it all right, so I'll just use a graphing calculator that can do it all for me. This new all information included wave is ready to be transmitted. Once the wave is received, the waves must be separated into the actual sets to then be understood. We do this using the Fourier transformation. This is a very complicated way to tell which waves make up the combination of all the waves put together. But with this simple visual, this can be more easily understood. The first part is all the waves put together to create the other wave that you can't really determine what is being said as well. The second part are the wave parts separated and easily translated. This involves many complicated equations and restrictions and everything that I don't understand, but it works out, and the math is mathing, trust me. Now, without further ado, here is the translation. Klept tlo kansan lexi zut tlön spli zlar slin sokas linkrab slin bletsum pi rotsbak upan spli slin mi rotsin kups spli slin lopa slin kupslin saplen zut tlön zlar slin plöts zilakak plon sim kupslin plöts Edward plon sim kupslin kupaslin sap perslot tlön zlar slin plöts kartes ryks pakupriks slin kuslin pulen klöts zlar slin takar esryk spa kupslin haslin mötslin saplen tal plöts plaslin mislin Kupanslin, Saplen, Kreuztrönslaarslin, Kladslin, Lietslin, Birkslin, Sanchaslin, Zerslin, Kuslin, Kara, Tobirkslini. And this is the wave that has all of that information distributed and added together to create what is transmitted.